Hallo und herzlich willkommen zum Auf Die Fresse, the wXW review podcast in English, except this time it's not review podcast. I'm Ian Hamilton, joined by Mike Kilby, and I guess this is how we do it on TV. Our guest at this time, the Managing Director of Westside Extreme Wrestling, Felix Kohlenberg. Felix, are we nervous getting to you yet for Carat in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. It's an exciting time right now, so very happy talking Carat season right now. All good here.
Of course, this coming weekend, we do have Dead End in the Market Hall in Hamburg in front of Das Power Crowd. Talked a little bit about that, but yeah, of course, the big thing upcoming is 16 Carat Gold, the 20th edition of the tournament, coming up in about 2 weeks' time. And yeah, in terms of the lineup, like, you know, we've got, I was saying to Mike before we hit record, we've got like this real, almost like a smorgasbord of names. It's not just, you know, the best of wXW and one or two fly-ins. Like, it's really hitting every, you know, corner post, really. You've got, you know, the recent New Japan guys, you know, Tetsuya Naito, Bushi in the tournament, Minoru Suzuki doing Ambition, Chihiro, Hashimoto. You've got, you know, guys from the indies, you know, Titus Alexander from the current indie scene, Erick Stevens, won't appreciate me saying from the past, but you know, linked to even the past of wXW there, and of course the best of wXW now. How do you feel about this lineup? Because like in years gone by, it's been, you know, a bit mixed, but this feels to be the most star-studded in terms of big names.
Yeah, I mean, it's different than it's originally used to be. I would say like the early Carats, it was always like, yeah, let's try and get the best or the like 6 to 8 best independence wrestlers that are available, like from the PWG, ROH era, depending on if they're running the same weekend or not. And that threw us around then. But this is kind of like everything changed since the early 2020s with the pandemic, I would say, and a lot of wrestlers getting signed and having contracts. So it got more difficult during the last few years. And when we started planning this year's Carat, we had like, aside of our regular names, of course, like 4 or 5 written down that we really want to get. We thought, okay, we have a good chance getting them. There's not a contract, or at least we have a good relationship there that could work. And these are like the first 5 wrestlers we have announced. So I'm super excited that worked out, because it's getting harder and harder to have a mix of wrestlers that we trust, that fit in wXW, that are exciting, and still having something new every year. So, but yeah, I have to say, I'm really happy with the lineup, because I think it's a good mix of styles, of where the wrestlers are in their careers. It's very different from very young to very experienced. So yeah, I have to say, I think it should be the most exciting lineup in quite a while, I would say.
So you're touching about the contract stuff. Obviously, you know, since, you know, the pandemic, when you use that as the watermark, AEW's kind of grown, expanded in terms of the contracts they have, you know, plus the Ring of Honor, I guess, sub-brand, if you want to call it that. WWE's expanding. You know, in the past year, they've signed, you know, names from wXW, Mike DeVecchio, Idol Blanc now, Idol Fleur. So it's that whole thing as well. If you've got guys who maybe being signed a little bit sooner than they used to be, without the whole thing of, like, you know, we saw for a while with NXT UK, the possibility of being allowed out on loan, to borrow a footballing term. So how has that been, you know, not so much with Carat, but just with wXW in general, looking at and handling the pool of talent, which outside of Europe, of course, that maybe hasn't been as free-flowing as it would have been 6, 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, I would say we rely less on, I don't want to say international because it's still international, but that's North American talent, or even like UK wrestlers that we are flying in than we are used to, because it's a different pool to choose from. And I think the continental European scene has grown, so this helped us, of course, because it's not as easy in saying having like a show in 8 weeks and just pick somebody who's real hot, having great matches, and is just available. This is just not happening anymore in wrestling, because if these wrestlers are there, they're either are signed to one of the companies, or about to be signed, or are very busy on the indies that are left. So we really have to plan very far in the future. So this lineup has been has been quite a while already locked in, of course. Yeah, and I think it's something that we just have to consider going forward. That because it's not 2012 anymore; it's 2026, and I think that's a new challenge. But I think that one we are take on. I mean, it's just not out there that we have like wrestlers in their early 20s that are really like breaking out and already being very good because they are getting signed. But I think that that's interesting as well because we do have some like you mentioned Titus Alexander. He would be one of these guys who would have been in a Carat 10 years ago. But then you also got somebody like Erick Stevens who's just coming back to the Indies and I would say is better than ever, I want to say. So I think that this gives us something really interesting to work with. But it's definitely different when we put the lineup together than it's used to be for sure.
When you sort of look at who to bring in for the tournament, like you sort of mentioned the fit like within WXW, because I very often look at workers and I think that is a WXW worker. Like it's the sort of person that's kind of a bit of a vibe about them. What is sort of your like first consideration when you look at sort of somebody coming into in for a tournament weekend or you know elsewhere?
I mean, on one side, it's more like the rest and the personality has to fit in what we are doing, not even just in the ring, but also like in terms of the whole team, because that's especially for Carat, it's important. Like everybody is in the Turbinenhalle for almost 3 days straight and working together for the same goal. So like that personality, first of all, has to fit in. That's why we do have some people returning that has been in prior Carats like RS or Erick Stevens, because you actually know these guys have the same mindset than we do. They're going to fit in. But looking into new wrestlers, I mean, it's a certain wrestling style, I would say, but even though we are very open-minded to what we like, but it kind of has to make sense even these days because everything is kind of sped up in a lot of promotions or trying to get out there with the next crazy spot, which is fine, of course, and it's cool, but I think there's more depth to it, like more if there's a character behind it, a certain look, and of course wrestling quality. So that's why we got Chihiro Hashimoto in for the first time, Titus Alexander in for the first time. We feel like they contribute what we are looking for, basically.
Yeah, I think like Hashimoto. I think we was at the Carat last year. There was a few. We was as we always do. We end up sort of myself and a few people. We end up sort of sitting around saying, "Oh, who would you love to see in for Grand Prix or Carat?" And Hashimoto was right at the top because I was like, she just seems like somebody who's exactly the right sort of person for WXW.
Yeah.
And it's it's a delight to have her over.
Maybe fun side fact there, because I have to admit a few years ago because you cannot watch every wrestling, of course, and I was not very deep into Yoshi, and it was just like maybe 3 years ago, Dan Reed from Eve sent me a match. I said, "Oh, this is surprisingly good." And he said, "Yeah, I know what you like," and that was Hashimoto. So because I wasn't watching much at that time, and he because kind of like you said, there's not a WXW formula wrestler out there, but it's kind of like what we like, what we want to bring in, and kind of like what it's working out for us and what's fitting in our style of presentation, I would say.
I think of Hashimoto as well. This is her first tour of Europe since 2019, I want to say. No, she did some stuff with Eve, September 2018, and then Fight Club Pro, just under a year late. So, even for those who go to all the shows, it's the first time she's been over for a while. So it is almost, definitely first time in Germany. But for a lot of people, I know there's a few from the UK traveling over just for her. It's that special kind of name that it's dragging the people who wouldn't necessarily come or would be interested, but that name is making people make a trip, like with Dragon Kid at Person Grand Prix. It's speaking to a completely different set of fans that know about WXW, but making the leap to make the trip. It's that kind of name that's really catching people's attention. But the other end of the spectrum with the Carat line, got obviously with WXW regulars, but there's two names in that lineup this year which really jump out to me as very much the future of European wrestling, with two very distinct styles, Zoltan and Ricky Sosa. It's also, only just been in WXW not even 6 months at this time. Zoltan a little bit longer, but I don't want to say, hey, how do you think they're going to do, because it's the whole commentator's curse kind of thing. But what kind of thing are you looking out from them for their first real big tournament wrestling weekender?
I mean, it's kind of like their careers in WXW now seems to feel linked to each other, because you mentioned Zoltan is with us a little longer, of course, but everything kind of started at Extreme Wrestling Party with the match they had against each other. It was Sosa's debut, but it was Zoltan's first big singles match, I would say. And then they had the anniversary European title match together, and now they're both in Carat. And yeah, I think it's kind of like looking into the future with them, but they're, I mean, on one way they're similar, but on the other hand they're still very different, right? I mean, with Ricky, I mean, the pressure is on right now, right? I mean, he went viral he went viral with his entrance, and people are talking about him right now, and there's Mark Henry saying he's the future, and this might all be right, of course, but now it's more like, okay, eyes are on you. It's 16 karat. You're the European champion. So I'm really interested to see how he will fare. I trust him, but I mean, that's a big step up from, hey, let's go out Extreme Wrestling Party, have a big 6-minute match, throw everything out in 6 minutes. Now it's Carat, right? That's a little different. So, and with Zoltan, it was a little slower, of course, because he was always around, always training, either with us or with Lawrence Roman in Dresden, of course, mainly. So for him, it was a little slower, but I mean, he's the youngest wrestler ever in Carat. So I think that certainly brings some pressure there. But I mean, the way he progressed, basically, like everything from basically shortcut onwards when he was in there for half an hour, which was very impressive considering he wasn't even supposed to be in shortcut a few hours before the show. I think he did very, very well for that. So I trust these, but I think now Carat will be like very important steps in their not in their careers, but in their next like half a year, how everything will go for them, because now it's not only like us and you guys seeing it, but at Carat more and more eyes will be on them, of course.
Yeah, the world is sort of watching more for Carat than maybe We Love Wrestling in Bielefeld, you know.
Probably. It's a shame. Bielefeld is fun. Yeah,
but Bielefeld's a great house.
Yeah, I was just looking. It feels like it's a lot longer, but the Project Novum Berlin, the match of Lawrence Roman and Zoltan, where really burst onto the scene for those who do watch. I say the undergrops, like the really those kind of shows, and it's just been wild. Like it's not been the kind of guy who's been on the shows and he's been on every week. He's been doing the promotions. He's been, in fact, he's only over 100 matches in 2 years. He's not someone to rest on his laurels, at least what we've seen. So, yeah, very interesting to see how the pressure of that first Carat weekend, because you said with Ricky Sauce, he's gone viral. He's, I don't say flashy in terms of style and the whole look, but Zoltan's very much the kind of guy who very easily go under the radar based on people's. When you compare the two, one's flashy, one does all the flips with the top rope Blue Thunder Bomb, for instance. You're not exactly getting that kind of stuff out of Zoltan, but it's the whole thing of you're both running the same race just in two different ways. I mean, I guess one thing I want to bring up is obviously Carat this year. I believe all the Carat nights, if you're going, it's just standing. How, if we don't look about numbers and figures, but as far as WXW now compared to ye olde golden years, how do you feel WXW standing now, at least in terms of like this, in terms of like the gates and how the general buzz is compared to the mid to late 2010s with the likes of Ilya, Walter, and Bad Bones? Like it's a completely different crowd, but how do you feel WXW stand compared to what people look at for glory days, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's like a natural progression almost, because I mean, of course, we appreciate every fan that is following us for 5, 10, 15 or even more years now, but usually you don't follow one promotion or even like somebody for that long. So it's natural that it's not the same people coming anymore. It's different. Yeah, we might have higher numbers, of course, in terms of attendance, looking into Carat 2019, 2020 with all the standing room. That was easier, of course, and it might have been different because there was Shotgun around, and like you mentioned, Walter and Ilya drew everybody in. And I don't want to say after that were the down years, but we had like reshuffled the whole roster. We were stuck behind the WWE network. Nobody could see us really. That was not easy to even like people knew about us anymore. It was kind of, oh, they're gone or something. No, we're not gone. So like since the last, I want to say like 18 months, everything has changed with being on Triller, being more accessible, more stuff on YouTube. It has grown back up, I would say. Like attendances here are really good, but we also see like the watch time on our streams is much higher than it's used to be. So we feel like it's getting to the right direction. So it's really hard to compare like the earlier years to now, because even though there might be like, I don't know, the peak or the glory year someone to think about, but if you look at some of these shows, there were like 80 people in attendance sometimes when we were on the road. And like quality wise, I mean, like even when we had Egle and Mike leaving last year, there were like, we mentioned Zoltan, Ricky Sosa, and that like Dieter Schwarz and some others, they are stepping up. So I think the quality in terms of depth on the show is even higher than like the 2016-17 years, because some of that undercard was rough sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the floor is a lot higher, if that makes sense. You look at almost every. I feel like the barrier to entry, like for the wrestlers, that you have to, they're better in general as they do come into WXW. I think for sure. I think 2015, like for me, 2025, was I think really genuinely one of the best years that since I've been watching anyway. And I was there in 17 and 18, but I felt a lot more maybe attached to the wrestlers this year, because I feel like we've had the years growing with these people who've grown up through WXW, rather than sort of, there was a lot of Walter and Ilya were incredible, obviously, but the sort of from bottom upwards, there's a lot more attachment, I think, from my perspective, to the wrestlers.
Yeah, that also I think that's the way it should be ideally. Like we are building up like our core again, and we definitely see that when we are going on the road. Like even like the smaller, like We Love Wrestling, or even the shows we're only taping for, or not even taping, or just throwing out on YouTube now. I mean, we see that people also get attached to our new stars, if you want to say that way. And I think that needed sometimes, but as they were always there, now they're growing their characters, they are getting there. So that's the really important steps, I would say.
I know we're talking about 2025, Mike was saying, one of the hottest years, and Voice of Wrestling past month, they did their whole match of the year poll, and there's a fair amount of WXW representation in there. The Leah Bloom, Ahura main event from König to Catcher, I think 37th, 38th. But there's a lot of matches which came up in that poll, and more than just from me and Mike voting as well, but a lot of different commentators, seeing from Triller and various tidbits that are out there. Something else I did want to touch upon, and there's a lot more frequent, and the Wrestling Observer did their annual the Observer Awards voted by Observer readers and subscribers, of which I will hold my hand up. I am not one, so I'm not accepting any blame for any of this. But the MVP of the Europe Award, which, again, a lot of these Observer categories are very intentionally loosely written, I guess you would say. I know, is it Michael Oak who won the MVP of Europe this year, Leon Slater, Mercedes Moné, Zack Sabre Jr. in the mix as well. And, yeah, I mean, I guess, Mike, for you, maybe we can bring some in a future episode, but we probably names from the WXW sphere probably should have been in that mix, but again, probably comes down to the eyeballs being seen, how widespread. But yeah, I mean, it is from your mindset, and this probably isn't. I'm not going to ask for a name, but in terms of that whole award, how would you want to see that be reframed? Would you want to be just Europeans or just only based on people working in Europe?
Yeah, that's a question, right? Because it has to be either or. Right now, it's all mixed up. I'm fine with either one, but it just didn't make sense, like how the way it was voted, because I think there's no structure there. And then, I mean, the UK will always be more interesting for international fans because it's English speaking and there's more established, and Oku is a great ace, I want to say, for that. So I think that's good, but I think we don't have to underestimate not even just what we do, but what's happening probably with Banger Zone wrestling or with the French wrestling scene. And in other countries, I mean, if you look at them and compare that to some stuff that's in the UK, I don't think they have to hold back there. So I would really like if fans are more open-minded to maybe promotions they don't really know, because like production-wise, everybody has stepped up there. I mean, most companies have English commentary, so that's very easy to access these days. Yeah, so I think we just need to get over the bridge, I want to say, because like I said, Voice of Wrestling, yeah, it's great that Ahura and Bloom was covered there, and we're also releasing this match completely for free on YouTube this week, so hopefully getting some extra buzz with that. And I mean, Phil Schneider covered the dog collar on YouTube, which was also on Yahoo, which was also good. But I think that some just completely ignore what we do is sometimes a little frustrating, I want to say, because I mean, in Europe, of course, you have like RevPro doing amazingly well, but if you look into the US indie scene, there's a lot of up and down there, and there are a lot of like great steady promotions right now. So I think it's a good chance actually for Europe as a whole to step up and show, hey, we are independent wrestling, look at us and see what we all can do together.
I think especially like when you look at how a French show was filmed, well like Banger Zone, for example, if you looked at what Belgian shows were 3 years ago, it's compared to what it is now, it's incredible. And I think, you know, people like obviously yourself and you know, White Wolf and Body Slam in Denmark, they sort of pushed the limit in a time where there was a lot of, I would say, low production values, and that was including the Britain, because Britain was not good for a long while either. But yeah, it's so accessible, some of it as well now. I completely agree with it, and I think it's hard to sometimes, because there's so much wrestling, you're just competing against everything at the same time, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's getting not worse in a way. I mean, for fans, it's better probably, but for promotions, it's getting worse, I want to say, because you have to compete with so much, even like free wrestling or wrestling on TV. So, because like looking back into the first Carats, there was like WWE was on TV when we were very, very different to WWE on TV 10 years ago. But now it all like shifted, and with AEW in the mix, like people getting used to seeing other wrestling. So we are not just the alternative to TV wrestling. We need to be something completely different. We have to get the live experience. So yeah, I mean it's not easy, but I think we are getting there. And I think the more fans are open-minded and just want to find out what product they like, if it's WXW or any other European promotion, I think that will be good for everybody, because it doesn't have to be the same promotion that you watch all the time, just sticking there for the sake of it, and just see what's out there, and maybe something interests you even more.
I guess the natural bridge, of course, part of Carat Weekend, we have the Independent Wrestling Showcase, West Coast Pro, New Wave Wrestling out of Wales, Rev Pro, Fury Pro, and CBW from Mexico. I guess the obvious question, how did you pick the promotions of this? Because I think when we saw it at CBW doing Spiderfly and Toxin, that one was just like completely out of left field.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of know the early Saturday spot started with Wrestling Deutschland. This was absolutely horrendous.
The first one was great.
Backwards memories.
And then we just kind of knew what we want to do. There is it wrestling in Germany? Is it promotions on wXW now? Is it promotions that we are working with? Is it wildcard? And I think we have to raise the quality of wrestling. I mean, there was some good stuff, some okay stuff, but it's Carat weekend, so we have to get the quality up. So it's like, okay, now we are devoting more time and more resources to that. Let's find 5 or 6 promotions for this 2-hour show that should be represented at Carat that we think deserve the spotlight, also being on that stage in Germany on that weekend, and see how it's coming along. And I mean, it's very different from promotion to promotion. Of course, for example, we are well connected to New Wave, of course, which might be surprising for some fans that they are considered for that show, but what they are building or how our schools work together, there's a lot of relationship going on there. On the other hand, the Lucha match, it's more like, because there's, I mean, so many Mexican independent promotions, so it was more like, hey, these might be the wrestlers that are working. What could be the promotion that would represent that match? It can also be the other way around. So it was more like, okay, these are 2 guys that could maybe be the next ones. So let's get them over and then figure out the rest. So
it's a festival in the true sense of, you go to a festival and you might see the biggest musician of the next 20 years on the tiny stage behind all the burger trucks, and it's in a way, it's like, you know, the headliner of Carat in 3 to 4 years might be somebody who, you know, could be Toxin or something from this show today, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, look back at the wildcards shows. I mean, we had Adam Priest here defending the Action Wrestling Championship 2 or 3 years ago. Now he's not even like accessible for us anymore because he's on national TV. Or then you take Thomas Shire, who was the wild card on one of the fall festivals, and now he won Ambition, and he is in Carat. So it's always like, it's usually somebody just like trying to get in there, and they're all coming, not just to be on the show. I think they all want a spot in WXW or in one of the next 16 Carats.
Yes, you mentioned about New Wave, got the connection there. You know, they work with the Budapest Dojo, West Coast Pro. You've got the agreement with, the talent exchange. There's a name that got announced this past week would also be heading to the Wrestling Academy, straight out New Japan. Katsuya Murashima. That was one that caught a few people by surprise. Of course, following the steps of Oscar and Yuto Ice, as he goes by these days. How did that all come around?
Yeah, I mean, like, I can kind of see that it was a surprise, but why? I mean, we got the last 2 New Japan European excursion wrestlers. Of course, there were more ties with Oscar than with Yuto. Of course, it made sense for Oscar to come here because he was always based in Hamburg before, and so that was much easier. But I mean, they enjoyed their time here. I think they got a lot out of it, being on the road with us, wrestling in front of different crowds, working with many different wrestlers. So I think for New Japan, it was like, yeah, this worked out well. Let's do it again, right? And I think for Murashima, it might be even better because he will be based right in Gelsenkirchen. So he will be in the academy day in, day out, and having all the chances to be in the academy with Robert, with Peter, and then getting on other shows, getting on our shows, but also maybe going to like Belgium, going to Holland. So he might be even, I think he'd probably be even busier than Yuto or Oscar.
I think it's the whole thing, I guess in the post-Brexit world, it's the whole thing of mainland Europe is it's bright and how developed in Scotland. Like I said, you've got, is it Pro Wrestling Holland, he's booked in, SAJ in Italy, I think as well, is announced. So
yes,
it's a lot more than just WXW and maybe 1 or 2 smaller German promotions as well. So yeah, it's more of just the fact that the Oscar tie was a lot more obvious than this particular one was. It's been, it's come out as such a good excursion, especially now both Oscar and Yuto, pretty much ruling New Japan's tag division as we stand.
Yeah, I mean, look at them, right? It's very impressive what they are doing, and I think the quality of their work has been amazing lately. I think it's a hard time for New Japan, but it's also a very interesting time. It's kind of like what I said earlier, like if somebody is leaving, somebody else is stepping up, and that's kind of feels like how it's done in New Japan right now. And I think these 2 are just like pushing all the way through right now.
Yeah, it's taking the opportunity, and I think we sort of amongst the group of friends, we've always been like, we want to see the people go. There was a period where people were going on to excursion. You're like, why are they going there? Why not to WXW? Because it was always like WXW has everything there. When you had the old academy in Essen, it was like, they can sleep, they can wrestle until 4 a.m. and then go to bed, sort of thing. That was always the thing, which was for me. So I'm really happy we got some more, and hopefully even more in the future.
Yeah, sometimes just stuff takes longer in Japan than it does elsewhere.
Yeah.
Really. And I think it was kind of obvious with us being on the WWE network that New Japan might have not been too fond about sending their wrestlers here. So we have much more freedom right now in terms of the content, how we release it, but also in terms of how and which wrestlers we are booking. So I think that's also paying off in this year's Carat, if you see like how many different promotions are represented, because that's kind of like how we started the original Carats. Basically, we had wrestlers from all kind of promotions, and now it's the same again, which makes me very happy.
It's the Wild West of wrestling in a way.
Yeah, if you put all the logos of the promotions on there, I think it would look good.
Of course, Mushimi's announced for Ambition, and this year it's changing the format completely different. It's not going to be a one-show tournament. I guess main reason was the thinking behind changing that, I guess for a lot of folks, that the tournament style thing was a bit of an attraction. Was this more just to get more variety of names on the card, or was there a deeper meaning behind it?
I mean, we did the tournament so often now, and I think especially like last year's tournament, if you look back, I don't want to say it felt rushed through the tournament, but it wasn't what it could have been maybe. And I mean, it's taking a toll on these wrestlers to wrestle 2 or 3 times and then maybe even have to wrestle in the evening again. So it's really hard for them to focus if they have to do this style, especially like multiple times within 2 hours probably. So we just thought, okay, it's time to change it up, like bill 8 big matches, everything means something, and let's see how this can develop instead of having another tournament. So it might be different next year, but I think it makes more sense, and it's not like we're not having too many tournaments in WXW. So I think looking into the card, I think we have only like 2 matches announced so far. I think it should be better than the recent years, especially looking into the tournament matches.
I think so far Minoru Suzuki against Danny Jones, Kanji and Chihiro Hashimoto. Of course, we'll do the full card rundowns on our preview podcast a little bit later on. The other thing, big draw for the weekend, of course, Inner Circle Homecoming. Of course, Inner Circle historically has always been at the Academy, whether it's in Essen-Kartenberg or more recently in Gelsenkirchen. This time around, of course, sold out, so it's a big draw. It's going back to a place WXW hasn't run for better part of 20 years, the Turok in Essen. Now, I haven't been to a show in Essen, Mike. I'm pretty sure you know it's long before your time. I guess it was a big part of WXW's early history. Without sounding too glib, why Essen and why now?
I mean, it's a 20th 16 carat, so this is kind of like, okay, let's try and do something special. But yeah, it's not like we didn't want to go back there. It was more like, okay, when we left, we had to leave. It was not like, okay, let's leave the Turok and run somebody else and just trying to find.
I will go to Source for the sake of it.
Yeah, because just maybe to catch everybody up there. Like 2006, we took over the company from Hate, and yeah, we ran a big death match that maybe shouldn't have happened, and it was all a mess with the city and the venue, and it just didn't work. So then afterwards, we went to Overhouse and everything was fine, but for them, it's fine that we were not there. And of course, we had a home in Turbinenhalle. But actually, Dan Malman helped us to connect with the Turok again. And so we can go back there. And I think not being there for 20 years, actually, it's kind of crazy. It's like whenever we have like anniversary or so, you see like the gray old footage of like that's how WXW started. You can barely recognize Claudio Castagnoli in the ring there, but it's him.
As with the big hair.
Yeah, and that's the same venue. So like that's how it basically all started, with fans standing ringside, because all the production we had was a wrestling ring in the middle of a dark club, and that's the way it's going to be again. Hopefully not as dark. We're going to stream this one, but it will be similar. Like fans will be ringside, like in the academy in Inner Circle, but it's different because it's 250 people now. So I think it will be crazy atmosphere. It will be really packed. We hope to get everybody in. We think 250 should work, but we don't really know. Yeah, so I think going back there is special for us, because that's where it all started. Like a lot of memories there. So it kind of shaped what we are right now, but also we haven't been there in so long.
I guess, well, we were saying earlier, it's still a bit cold over in Germany, so 250, however many is going to be in the Turok, it's going to be plenty warm. My word, it definitely has been warm the last few shows in Gelsenkirchen, so yeah, it's going to be a nicer comparison point, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Like let's hope for Carat get some early spring weather, so it will be much nicer than now. But keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, for this one, I think just come in with a t-shirt and you will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, pack light. I was going to ask about with regards to obviously the academy, the Inner Circle show, obviously being a different venue. Is it likely to be sort of live streamed, or is it going to be sort of on delay? Do we know? Or
the Inner Circle show, you mean?
Yes. Sorry, the Homecoming. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, we will be announcing that. It's probably coming out before Carat, but not live.
Okay.
What it's like, but we want to get it out before the first day starts.
Yeah, it was always a little bit strange. You go on the cage match, and it would be Inner Circle would be after all the other events, because obviously it's the broadcast dates. Yeah. So all good. It's a good sort of taster for the weekend, but especially this time is even more of a celebration than normal.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like setting the pace for the weekend a little bit, getting used to the new wrestlers coming in that hasn't been with us before, that maybe are wild cards on Ambition, or are there for just stuff around the tournament, and for maybe because it's usually like in a circus a way different card from what we would usually do, and it's always the same. But yeah, I think that's kind of like everybody gets a little tease for like who's around, how's the mood going on. So yeah, and so it makes a lot of sense that at least everybody who wants to see it can watch it before the night one starts. So yeah.
And certainly we've been in Turok a lot more people than usual. I know for the last few Carat weekends, team we now call the Cowboy Way, they've had the show, I guess almost weekend stealing matches against the astronauts last year, and Liam Bloom and Naoyashiki and Nomura. So hopefully that's going to be something that's going to be followed up on. But of course, before Carat, before we wrap things up, this coming weekend, Dead End at Markshall in Hamburg. That one believes IWTV as well as the wXw's now. So 7 o'clock in Germany, 6 o'clock UK, 1 Eastern. I guess I don't want to say a hard sell because Markshall sold out, but for folks who might have IWTV and no one wants to click on it live, apart from Los Tranquilos to Japón, give us a hard sell, Felix.
Yeah, I mean, it's Hamburg. It's probably the craziest venue that we have. So the atmosphere for this one is always special. I mean, it's great being in that venue, but I think it's also very fun to watch it live on the stream. Like you mentioned, IWTV and wXW now, English and German commentary available. So yeah, I mean, just 2 weeks from Carat, but don't underestimate a Dead and Hamburg show, I would say. So yeah. This is like a big one. Like you mentioned, like Naito and Bushi there, of course, which is big for Hamburg that they are getting them. But I think the 3-on-3 main event with all the star power you can think of, if you look to wXW, I think that will make it special. Yeah,
the power crowd, I think, are gonna eat that up like crazy. I think
yes,
that main
absolutely.
event.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got Dani Luna coming back. She had a great debut for us in Hamburg, actually, with Mio Yamashita last November. So she is back there, which is very exciting. And then Yeah, I think it's a mix of like very established wrestlers, like you see in the main event, and then you got like the wild card thing, kind of with like Ricky Sosa against Brandon Bands, and see what's happening there. Yeah, so I think it will be definitely a fun show. So yeah, I think if you're interested in Carat, I think and even if you're not watching right now all the WXW shows, makes sense to watch that and get into the mood for 16 Carat, see what's happening right now, getting used to the characters you might not know. So watch that and maybe catch up on an old show and then get ready for Carat.
We mentioned obviously. Sorry, I was quickly going. We mentioned obviously Naito and Bushi obviously coming in. Like this has got to be the two. But Naito especially has got to be probably the biggest name WXW's ever had in a 16 carat, really, isn't it? It's I can't think of many others that have been at that level before coming to WXW.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like hard to compare him and Cody, I would say. I mean, Cody went on the bigger run afterwards, but I mean, he had a good run in WWE even before he was there. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like almost the same, I want to say. And Finlay was in Carat. So I think, but also that's different because he has the longevity on his side, but he maybe have never peaked in terms of draw like Naito did. If you the Hannover Schützenplatz to the Tokyo Dome, I think it's very hard. What's bigger, like selling out the Dome or having like 60 days straight in Hanover? I don't know, but yeah, I think he's definitely up there. So yeah, when we worked this out last November, when he was like unfortunately missing the Limbach Oberfrohna show, I think he was very upset about it, and Bushi was also disappointed about missing that. And then we like quickly talked about, and they wanted to make up for it and then say, nah, if we do this, we have to do it right. And yeah, getting Naito into Carat, like that would have been possible years ago. So I think this is like changes the whole dynamic of the tournament, I would say, to have such a legendary wrestler almost in there. Yeah.
It's as I say, it's just the only other person I could sort of, it's like you say, Finlay, it was like when you had like Kobashi in 2005, and it was like even then maybe that wasn't Carat, that was obviously pre-Carat, but
yeah, but like standalone shows whenever,
level,
maybe Tanahashi even more recently, maybe.
Yeah, but it was also like a standalone show, right? When Tanahashi was there, Kobashi, Misawa, that were like the big names. I mean, we had AJ, of course, when he was just like peaking on New Japan, but also that was also like a one-off during a festival and not in the tournament.
Yeah. We need a Naito DD Schwartz. That's what we need. We love DD Schwartz. We absolutely love him. So, yeah.
Yes, of course, 16 Carat Gold, all on wXwnow.com, IWTV as well, Friday, March 6th. So just check at WXW Germany on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days. wXwnow.com will have all the placeholders for Fight Forever matches, for actual live streams. And yeah, I think the second year Carat will be streaming live, so more eyeballs than ever, and especially with the names you've mentioned. Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a weekend. But Felix, just want to say thank you very much for joining us on Auf Die Fresse, and we'll look forward to making a trip over to Oberhausen, and we'll see you at the Turbine Hall.
Thank you very much. See you then.